Hey everybody, and welcome to part 2 in this Jura Impreza restoration repair project. If you're first joining us, you could click on this link in the top right corner. We'll take you to a listing of all the videos. You could click on the link to the first video or whatever video you left off from and continue from there. Our last video went into why we're doing this, the procuring of parts, how to tear this down, and the order of operations to keep everything in order when we do this, bringing it to maintenance mode so we could work on this now. This gives us access now to the grinder, as well as the brew group, also serviceable components found both in front and rear of the unit. This chapter will focus specifically on the brew group, its removal, its disassembly, its cleaning, and its reassembly. So let's get started. And we'll be continuing with the same accounting method that we used in the last chapter, leaving off at number 18. That was connected right over here, and it is this hose over here. I did find that there was another way that this could have been done as I look at the brew group now. The other end of this hose actually snaps right off the brew group by separating these two tabs. So I'll separate them now, disconnect it from the brew group. I'll come around the other side and remove it, and take that hose 18, place it right back on the valve on the other side where I'd originally removed it. I think this is the optimal way to disassemble the unit, more orderly. Again, using the 15-bit, this lower screw will be number 19. Just above that is a screw and a recess. This is number 20. Higher up and on the other side will be number 21. Over here we have a water line, and there's a clip that fastens it. We're going to use a pair of pliers to pull that clip up and remove it. This will be number 22. The brew group can now be pulled forward with the water line out of the fitting. There is a slot that holds the water line, needs to be pulled away from it. It's sort of a V shape, and now it's released, and now that whole brew group can come out of the unit. We can see that slot right there. There's the water line. Be careful not to dump all that crap into the machine, because in my case there's a lot of it. Here's the whole unit. We have no further work to do inside the machine this video. We're going to put it out of the way. This thing is disgusting. I'm going to hit it with a vacuum cleaner just so I can put it down on the table. I'll be sure to inspect areas like this before I do an actual cleaning. See white calcification, mineral deposits. Tell me there's a leak somewhere. Could it be that pipe? Could it be under that pipe? I don't know. That's why a closer look is required. That's why I don't immediately run and clean this stuff. Very quickly, I want to test the travel of this gear, bringing it all the way to the bottom, and then all the way back to the top, and note any areas of resistance. This is the first piece to be removed from the brew group. It's going to slide right off of this track after I push it from the bottom. I'm going to set my thumbs right here on the bottom and exert some pressure forward. Slides right up, slide it right off. This gear seems to be unobstructed. This next piece pulling downward slightly will cause this bottom hook to bend down and outward, releasing it like so, and then push back upward. We'll pull this piece off of the unit, put it off to the side. There are 4 recesses here where hooks hold this top piece into place. I take a small screwdriver and stick it into these detents to sort of pry it up gently. I get the first one done. I hold it up with my finger while I get the second one. It's a little bit difficult, but you want to be gentle. Once the second one's done, I hold both up, and with the third one, the fourth one just kind of pops off at that point. And now this cover's off. Here's that cover removed, and we can see that there is a piece, in fact, within this cover we need to remove. When removing the top cover, this piece came off the side. It went right here. I'll now remove this inner piece by very gently bending these 2 tabs into the circle, and that'll allow this piece to push through, and then through that center slot, it falls right out the bottom. Here's what it looks like. It's got a little grime in there, we see, and that's how the tabs bend. Rotating the gears to get this tube to an ideal position, we see this tube in the center pushing down and rotating counterclockwise. We're able to unlock it and then pull it up to remove, making sure it's completely removed with the spring and the nub on the end. I rotate the gears to try and get the bottom pieces into a centered and ideal position for the next task as I release these 4 fasteners on each side to take off the side covers. There we can see the 4. 3 of them are readily exposed. 1 of them's hidden. There's 1 that's easy to get to, and the bottom here is 2. Around the other side on the inside here is 3. This piece loosens and that's fine, just watch for the bearing. 4 is here on the bottom. There's actually a hole that's provided just to get to it under this metal bar. I'll zoom in once I release it so we can see. And by pushing it in, we release the cover. That side piece falls off as well as the bearing. I zoom in, we take a look at that hole so we can see exactly where it is. I put all the parts back together so we can see what it looks like as it's released and the cover comes off. There's a cover with the 4 tabs, as well as the side piece and the bearing still in place. Take that side piece off, and here's the bearing. I tape the bearing to each side piece so it don't get lost. The other side cover, associated piece, and bearing is removed in the exact same manner. This bearing is also taped to that piece for safekeeping. At this point, the large gear is unscrewed and pulled off of the unit. This piston is then gently slid out from the unit. As I inspect this piston, this is the first time I see what looks like a failure of a seal. Next, this piece is slid off the tracks directly off the bottom of the unit. This piece is extremely dirty. This bottom shaft will be pulled temporarily out of position to make space to remove the circlip. A pair of needle nose pliers will be used to pull the circlip out from the shaft. With the shaft pushed back into position, space will be made on the other side to pull the other circlip in exactly the same manner. The shaft required a little bit of effort to unseat, but I pushed it a little bit back and forth to release it, and then finally it was able to be pushed out from one side. Give a little twist as I pulled it out for a little bit of buildup that was on the shaft to be removed as it was pulled out of the unit. I want to keep the circlips with the shaft, so I taped them together. Under these pieces on each side is a bearing, so I'm gently going to deflect this plastic away from the unit and just give it a little shake so that the bearing will fall out and onto the table. And same thing on the other side. I'll put these bearings off to the side for now. With everything up top in the correct position so there's no interference, I'm turning these gears to push that piston upward so it pops out just like that. A quick glance at this piston also shows that the O-ring on this might also have compromised at some point. This piece can now be directly slid right out of the unit. This is really dirty on both sides of the seal. This piece has one arm slightly bent into the frame and slid sideways, and then it falls right out of this main frame to release it. And there it is. We can see everything behind the seal completely filled with coffee grinds. This doesn't seem to be correct. And this is the main housing, now completely bare, but incredibly filthy, ready for washing along with everything else. Come back to this piece for a second. I wiped off a section of it just so I could tape on the 2 bearings to it. This bottom piece was saved for last. It is so incredibly filthy. I'll brush it off and come back. A clip secures these valve components into this main plastic housing. I slide it out now with a pick. Put this clip off to the side. A plunger needs to be pushed in as all this is separated. It's a little quirky to do this. You kind of need 3 hands for this action. So kind of push it in, hold it with my thumb, put this pick in here to obstruct it. And while it's obstructed, I just gently lift each side of this from this side, back to this side, back to this side, back to that side, until the whole unit is raised out of this plastic housing. Sometimes this falls back into the detent and I have to remove it from it. We see, but it's coming up and eventually removed. Here it is now removed. And here's all the nastiness in the bottom of this thing. Pull the plunger and spring. Negotiate this rear cap off. It's really dirty and stuck. As we see, it's really quite nasty. I'd get my fingernail under this other cap and then turn it around to slowly pry it off. Really on there, really dirty. But as I did that, it was able to loosen and get further off until I was able to remove it. And here it is removed. And we do see seals in here on both sides. This T can then slide out of this main piece. More seals on here. And here's the main piece, free of all parts. There's one more pipe I could have removed the pin from, but I'm going to leave it alone from now and deal with it when I clean them later. Here's what we got. Let's start the cleaning portion. I have a kitchen cleaning product. It's a mild degreaser. I'm going to add it to room temperature water here in this pan. Start putting some parts in, working with the bigger parts, generally not as filthy first. So they're all going in now to soak for a while. And a few of these parts get a quick scrub, rinse, and they're done. But gears need to be inspected and brushed, every gear, to make sure there's nothing caught in between them. Here's the next piece, not very dirty, but has a large gear on it, needs to be cleaned. I'll point out all gears are going to be re-inspected. And then these parts are all going to be scrubbed with a toothbrush and cleaned, put to the side. This one right here, as I clean it, we can see the grinds have gotten behind the seal right here, confirming that this O-ring has failed, allowing all the grinds to get into the mechanical portion of this. So I'm going to remove the seal now, having confirmed this. We'll give it another scrub. I'm going to let this soak for a little while longer in here. This piece is next. This one takes a little while because there are 3 sets of gears on each side that turn each other. So I have to turn the gears a little and then clean the gears and turn them a little more and clean the gears. Eventually I get done, however. It comes out pretty good. This piece was absolutely filthy. This was the one all the way on the bottom, but everything came off with the brush. So there's no problem at all to clean it right up. I start putting in the next load of parts with the main unit. Clean up this piston from before that I left soaking. This looks good now. And while I'm doing that, the first batch is being rinsed and then dried and then left on this towel over here. I'm dropping in these other panels now into the water, but I'm taking those bearings from them and putting them in the finished section so I don't lose them. This piece too has 2 bearings. I'm moving those into the finished section. I'm starting cleaning of these parts. This main part right here has a lot of dirt in different areas. The sides weren't too bad, but I cleaned and inspected the bearing surfaces for wear. I didn't really see any wear anywhere in this unit, so these pieces are all good. The bearings themselves do have dirt on it. Each bearing will be individually cleaned. With the plastic part cleaned and dried, the bearing is retaped to it. The same for this part, both bearings are retaped to it. I'm unscrewing this piece now with a Phillips head, removing this metal element so all these parts can now be cleaned. Now remove this O-ring before throwing it in the water. This piece had a lot of blocked holes looking through the light with the camera. I wish I took a video beforehand. The black spots are complete blockages. I can imagine that would have caused an increased pressure with all the blockages on this element. Quick cleaning of the screw, and that was it. Here's the after of the element. After cleaning it and soaking it, there are 0 blockages in any of the holes. Put in fresh water for the smaller pieces. I'm just going to start dropping them in. This one has a spring and a rubber stopper that's removed. I'll just throw that in. This bar right here, I'm going to use metal polish. I use Maz to shine this bar. It's not going in the water. And after it's shined up, I'm going to wash it. And we can see it came out nice. I'm going to reattach the C-clips to it with tape. I continue now by dropping in all the rest of the small pieces. This one from the bottom portion of the unit together as a group. This piece will have O-rings removed from each side. I use my small hook to do this. There's the first ring removed. And on the other side, second ring removed. With this, I'm just going to remove the spring and wipe down the plunger because that seems to remove all the debris. It's all required. And now it's clean as new. Take out the metal clip. These plastic end caps are incredibly dirty. This was the shorter one of the 2. It's the one that the plunger goes through. This is the longer one on the other side that's keyed, that has that square hole on it. This piece has 2 O-rings to remove. There's one. There's 2. This piece has a 90-degree elbow that still needs to be separated. There's a clip there, so I'm going to pull it out with a hook. There it is, and then the 90 comes right out. These pieces are particularly filthy, so I'll give them a good cleaning. Inside both ends of these are 2 seals, so I'm going to pull them out with my hook. There's one. On the other side, same type of seal. Pull it out. Number 2. That 90 elbow I removed has a small O-ring on it, so I'll remove that now. It's the last O-ring. Then I'll give that part a final cleaning. These pieces have been soaking for a while. They're ready to be removed and washed off. I hit the spring and that little rubber stopper with the brush though. Finally, we get to the last piece, and this will be the end of the cleaning portion of this project. Shake this off and get rid of the water. Here are the old O-rings. I keep a count of them till the project is over. All the new O-rings for the brew group came as part of the kit. And then I'm like, crap, I'm missing an O-ring. Where's the missing O-ring? Sure enough, it got stuck inside the flange of this O-ring. Problem solved. So I'm going to start with these 2 first. It's got a lip on it, so it has to be negotiated in. So I'm using my fingernail to get it over that flange. Make sure it's sitting straight. Use that metal rod. Push it down. Seat it all the way to the bottom. And repeat the same procedure on the other side. Make sure both seals look good before continuing. This other piece uses the large black diameter O-rings. I'm going to place them on now. Just flip right over the tops. And then I'll drop that spring and plunger back in the bottom of this piece. This T takes 2 small O-rings. One sits here in the groove on the long end, and the other one sits here off to this fitting just like that on the end. That small 90 takes the 3rd O-ring just on the end as shown. I will apply just a hint of the lubrication to that O-ring off the 90. The 90 will then be pressed back into that T. Should fall right in. After giving a couple turns, the retainer clip is then pushed through, locked into position. This keyed fitting should fall into place on one side. The other fitting for the plunger should press into place on the other. Plunger is then inserted. A quick test is done for functionality. Again, a minimal amount of lubrication is applied to these 2 O-rings on this fitting. This fitting is then renegotiated into the bracket, pushed up into the bracket, and then there's an appendage that's pushed in to seat it, pointing straight up as we look at it from the top. We see 2 notches that ensure correct seating. We do have to depress the plunger as we lower this into position. So we lower it while pressing the plunger along with the 2 notches. This will lower it and also seat the bottom, which has to be straight up and down. And as we press, we keep inspecting, pushing up, it clicks into position, and this is now perfectly seated. The retainer clip is then inserted in the bottom to hold everything together. This piece is then put off to the side until later. The filter element is placed back on this piece. The screw is reapplied. It's tightened down. Just snugged, that's all. One of the new large O-rings is now added to this piece, as well as this piece, and that's all the new O-rings from the kit. I'll remove these bearings that I taped to this unit. And I'm going to apply a layer of lubricant to the entire inside of this cylinder. Note the position of this main piece is pointing this way, and the flat pointing that way on this piece. I'm going to install it sideways, rotating it to get one of these arms out and through the hole. And in the same manner, I'm going to get the other arm on the other end also through the hole on the other side, bringing it forward to do that because the hole's longer. Just push it right through, just like that. And while there's no bearings, these do kind of sit in a track, as you see here. Sit in track on that side too. I have this piece held with those gears aligned forward. This piece with that bend pointed upward, I push it right in. It interlocks with those gears, and I push it in all the way back. Seats right in. The gears rotate as you see. Mechanical, I'll move it back and forth a couple times, and I'm just going to push it all the way back. Now the piston will be lubricated. The back of the piston has a rectangular piece. It's facing up, and the piston is gently pressed in all the way to the back. Everything is moved around to align the bottom holes, and then the bar is pushed through. I take the two bearings off of the tape, place it on the track next to where it'll seat, and lift up the plastic piece, and just push the bearing right under it. Repeating this on the other side. Quick check shows everything moving smoothly in the track. I'm going to test it real quick, moving it around in a circle. Only goes clockwise. You can see the two locks on the bottom and top. So I'm going to do a complete rotation. Also observing from another angle with the piston going down and up. All the plastic parts moving. I'll take this time to put the C-clips back in that bar in the bottom. I'll just align them and then use a pair of needle nose pliers to put some downward force, lock them into position. Again, just a tiny amount of lubricant on this seal. And this whole piece slides right up on this track, trying to keep it flush on the bottom as shown. Now I'm taking a lot of lubricant and I'm putting it on the inside of this large gear. And I'm taking the gear and I'm spinning it up and down the main piece to coat the threads of that main piece. Seems like an effective way to do it. And now with more lubricant, I'm lubricating this O-ring. See this round piece inside will point towards the back of the unit as I lower it in. That's the direction it will face. So I'll drop it right back down here. Squeeze the threads together very slightly. I'll turn on this gear a couple turns. Now I'll bring this piston all the way up. Remove the bearing I've taped onto one of the plastic pieces. Place the bearing on like so. As I lay the plastic piece down, we could see that the bottom piece will need to be adjusted to accommodate. So I'll rotate the bottom piece to bring it upwards and to the left. Right after the top lock is where it should be. Now this piece goes on and we can see everything fits into place. And the bearing is clearly centered right here. Top cover will now snap back on. 3 of the snaps will be easy. The last snap will require that this back piece is aligned, so I'll pull it down and up into position. I'll repeat everything that I just did onto the other side now. Excess lubricant can be wiped off pieces at this point. We see a detent right here. There's another detent on the other side and a hole down here. This needs to be held upside down so that the spring doesn't fall out. I did it off camera, so I'm showing it on the old footage reversed, locking it back into place. And that's what it looks like back in place. The top cover has this arc on it. The arc points towards the sides of the unit when pressing the cover down. So they snap in all 4 corners. This little outer cover is installed as shown, slides up here, and then snaps on top. I use a tiny amount of lube again, just this seal right up here. We see 2 small slits where we will guide this piece onto, just like that. And when we have it guided, we just have to bend the bottom tabs inward into the circle to lock it in. They just fall under the hole. I did it kind of off camera a little, but I'll show you. There it is, they fall under, the other tabs stay up top, and I use a screwdriver just to straighten that other piece out under it that moved a little. There we go. We're going to test it now. We should hear 2 clicks. Here comes the first. There's 1. And now it goes all the way down. Everything is working really smooth. We're working our way back up, and right before the end, we should hear the second click. Here it comes. Right there. We're going to put on this piece now. We can see these 2 areas. Sort of a diagonal looking fitting here where these lock in. And then we just kind of push up, and this comes outward. We click it in. It snaps on, and that's it. Finally, this piece by the triangular side, there's a track here, slides on. And we line up the gears, we wiggle a little, slide it back until it clicks in. Give that outer gear a quick test, and it works just fine. And that's it. That's a full restoration of a brew group on a Jura Impreza. In our next video, we're going to move to the grinder, go through the entire unit and clean everything out. You could use it. And address some possible issues on the front dispenser. Hope you found this video useful, enjoyable, entertaining, informative. Do me a favor, hit that like button down below. Helps me out a lot when you do. And that subscribe button for more videos like this when they come out. When the next video comes out, a link will be posted in the top right corner. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. Would you like to reply?